Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, Dr. Mike Leno, and effervescent Evan Ginsberg. Do you want, Dr. Mike, do you want to introduce our two guests for tonight?
Yes, I do. They're no strangers to this show, no strangers to anyone that loves wrestling history, wrestling period. But first, I want to say happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, obviously happy Christmas, whatever you celebrate, we're all for. We're talking tonight and doing a special feature on two people I feel very close to. Obviously, Evan's my brother, but tonight is prolific, fantastic wrestling authors. And whereas, I don't have any excuse, I've got to work with Evan and get our Tolis book out. But I do want to say that Cody Rhodes last night, he's interviewed after the John Cena retirement thing, or no, excuse me, CM Punk, and I emailed this to some friends, not everybody, not Mike or Sheldon, sadly, but he's talking about guys who drew money in the territory days, and he mentioned John Tolis. This is Cody Rhodes, Cody Runnels.
CM Punk.
CM Punk, I'm sorry, CM Punk. So before I screw up anything else, I look like shit, I feel like shit, but want to plug, because we're talking about books, Killer, Karrion Kross, his book. Obviously, Evan's one of many books, and I should say, you talk about prolific authors. He's right in there with our guest, Sheldon Goldberg. I can only find two of them, but Sheldon almost every year has been putting out these wonderful fictional books. But anybody that's a smart wrestling fan is going to love them. He probably, hopefully, will hold up the rest of them. Sheldon Goldberg, who put out Matt Marketplace for a jillion years, very unique newsletter, and promoter, owner, creator of New England Championship Wrestling. He gave birth to many, many stars, and we'll talk about that and his books and what's going on with him. Mike Rodgers, Ring Around the Northwest, one of the longest newsletters. I think older and longer in terms of duration than Dave Meltzer's Observer, definitely longer than the Torch and the Figure Four Weekly. But he put out three of Excitement in the Years. He put out, several other ones, Katie Bar the Door. But his latest, his fantastic, ooh yeah, History of Hawaiian Wrestling. Obviously, that came from Pampero Firpo. Randy Savage stole it later. I love the cover. Ripper Roy Collins, Peter Mavia, Handsome Johnny Barron, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Well, he was just Jimmy Snuka then. But our two guests, Sheldon Goldberg, Mike Rodgers, obviously Evan, the author, and Ev, let me let you start.
Sure. While we're plugging books, I really recommend Sheldon's The Last Fall. Can you see this, guys?
No.
Yes? No?
No.
What do I need to do? It's right
Turn
in
off
front of
your
the
background.
camera.
Where did I put it? I just had it. I just thought I held it up. Oh, here we go.
There we go. Someone without a background.
Got it right here.
There we go.
There's so many, I think all of us could hold up Sheldon's books. So fantastic.
Right.
And Nikita Brezhnikov, When It Was Real, highly recommended. WWF. Brian Solomon's Chic book. Mike Mooneyham, Final Bell. And Kenny Casanova did 137 different books, all quality. This is Kamala's.
There's Richard Visek, Steve Verrier's Wilbur Snyder, too, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty. I know both Mike and Sheldon know this name. Wilbur Snyder did a lot more than just hand out the skinny paychecks from Dick the Bruiser's WWA in Indianapolis.
I just want to take one moment out to say peace home to Mr. Electricity Steve Regal, who died over the weekend, the light heavyweight champion from the AWA. I saw him wrestle once in 1983 against Mr. Child Abuser, Buck Zumhoff.
Yes, it was at the Oakland Arena, because I think after Roy Shire retired, and I don't know, I think I've told Sheldon and Mike this, Roy Shire knew that Vince Jr., and this is January of 81, he knew Vince Jr. and Vern were coming in to, as he put it, when he was co-host my TV show, one of several times, pick the bones of his territory when he folded the office with a fantastic Last Battle Royal card, won by Pat Patterson. The last four guys in that were Dick Slater, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, and the winner, Pat Patterson, obviously for that. But so Roy went to the LA Times and the San Francisco Chronicle, the two biggest newspapers in all of California, exposed the biz, as he put it, to F it up for those two guys. He had no,
Mm,
he sort of like Vern, but really despised Vince Jr. from those NWA meetings. When
mm.
Vince Sr. started coming and he brought Jr. to, I think, the last one he went to in like 79. But, um, just of note, of interest. But anyway, let's throw Sheldon. Let's start with you because you're on East Coast time, and let me know if you've got to go early or leave, an X period of
I'm
time
good.
because I know it's late. It's 11 is or 10 o'clock is
No, it's
PM
just
is
after 10.
yeah, just after 10. But
Yeah, it's great to see all of you. I haven't seen Mike Rodgers in I don't know how many years, and it's good to see you. And congratulations on your books.
Thank
And
you.
Mike, I haven't seen yours, Shane, upon him, and God, I don't know how many years, but you look good to me.
all gray, well, almost all
Yes.
gray,
Well, hey, listen, none of
and
us
I'm
are getting
losing
any
it. I'm
younger, my
losing it up
man.
here. I got bald spots everywhere.
Yeah. Mm. But no, it's great to be here. Was there a
Yes,
question I
thank
was
you.
supposed to answer, or?
No, just you have another one coming up, which is just remarkable. It's less than what was your first one? It's seems like it's only been like 4 years, and you've had 4 or 5 books.
No, it's less than that.
Astonishing.
It's about 3 years.
Whew. That's
Four
even
books
more
in 3 years.
astonishing. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's done that in wrestling. So Sheldon must have the Guinness Book of
Yeah.
World Records. No one has accomplished that or been able to. Not, no way.
Sheldon's
Not
like the
Keith Elliott
Charles
Greenberg.
Dickens of wrestling.
I'm the what?
The Charles Dickens of wrestling. He used to pump
Oh,
out.
wow.
He
Okay.
pumped out
All right.
classic books like it was nothing. Yeah.
And
Well,
all of Sheldon's books are good. There's no filler.
yeah, it's funny. Once I wrote the first one, and it was so well received by people because I had no idea. I didn't know if I was going to sell 5 copies or people were just going to like, whatever. But it was so warmly received by people, and it sold so many. I published it myself with the help of our friend Kenny Casanova, and I think to date I've sold over 2,000 copies of this book.
Wow.
So for a self-published book, I understand that that's really, really good, and the others aren't too far behind. There's 3 others. The fifth book rather, which is going to be the last one in this series, is called The Warmth of the Sun, SON, and I just finished tweaking the last chapter earlier this afternoon. So I think once I get over some health things, I'll be ready to put that out, and then the project after that is an autobiography.
We are going to have Sheldon back, and we're going to play that Brian Wilson Beach Boys songs, "The Warmth of the Sun," when we introduce when we introduce you. One of my favorite all-time, one of the magnificent harmonies, and that's when you first told me that, I thought immediately of that Beach Boys song from whatever it was, 1965. Amazing. And the two things about, or the main thing too, is that you guys have a real respect, admiration, both Sheldon and Mike Rodgers, in the business. So people know they're going to get quality, whether it's a newsletter that you guys both put out, Matt Marketplace and Ring Around the Northwest, or your, in Sheldon's case, his promotion for many years. I mean, how many people came in and out of that? Sumi Sakai, all these people, they still say it was one of their favorite places to work. What a great, conscientious, caring promoter you were. And really, nobody's gotten that kind of praise except for Tony Khan being similar in that respect to his talent and beloved by his talent. And that's the way Sheldon was. And, it's tough finding time for wrestling. I almost love indies more than having to slog through. I don't know how you guys feel if you're watching TV, either Mike or Sheldon, but SmackDown's going back to 3 hours. Raw is typically at least 2.5 hours, sometimes longer, and I've been like boycotting watching it. I've taped the stuff and I just took a week off and I've been doing family stuff and watching other stuff, Mandalorian and stuff like that lately. It's just a burnout. Even though I want to see the Cena thing, I know what happened, but I didn't watch it last night. But I did watch the after show. I was so blown away. Somebody like CM Punk would name drop John Tolos and Bruno Sammartino. Those are the
Yeah,
two
yeah.
classic guys. So I think we should steer somebody like him who loves his history, the biz, like a Mick Foley or Bully Ray Bubba Dudley, to Sheldon and Mike Rodgers books. I'm sure they'd love it. I think both would love everything you guys have put out.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
so let me ask Mike, what is I'll ask you both your creative process for both of you. How, like Mike, in your case, Sheldon is nonfiction, which is very unique. Like nobody's doing that or really has in wrestling, but you're doing it on fantastic, incredible territories. Don Owen, obviously Ed Francis, and those that came to follow. When I talk about Hawaiian wrestling, I always talk about Ed Francis because I think he was the class promoter.
Yeah, with the Hawaii book, I was fortunate enough to interview Lord Blears years and years ago. And the one thing that I can remember from that interview is I'm trying to ask him, those cards are just unbelievable. You have the guys coming and going from Japan, and each and every card is just a dream card. And so I'm asking him, was it fun to book? Was it exciting to promote? And he very clearly wanted me to understand that it was the 8 to 10 guys that were on TV every week that were drawing the money. It was King Curtis, Ripper Collins, Johnny Barren, whoever was there. And if Bruno or Wilbur Snyder or somebody else just happened to drop by and fill out the cards, that was nice. But those weren't the guys that were drawing the money. And I kept asking that same question in different ways to the point where he started to get a little annoyed with me, really wanting me to understand that it was the locals, the guys that were living there, that were really, really the ones responsible for the success of the promotion. I also had a chance to interview Ed Francis, and I'd been chasing him to do an interview for years and years, and he did it, and I'm very grateful. But it was right about the same time that his book was coming out, so he didn't really dive in and give me the interview that I was really hoping for. And as we're talking for a moment about interviews, it's interesting how when you interview somebody, there's always going to be that little level of trust and how honest they're going to be, and the rapport that you're going to have with them. And I've always thought if you can have some little thing, some little anecdote or things that can tie you together before you start, it's going to help you. And I interviewed Bull Ramos, and the thing that tied us apart was my wife and his daughter went to school together, and they played together. And my wife had actually been to his house. And so when I told him that story, it was like, we had that little connection, and Bull Ramos did a great job. He at the end, I had allotted like 2 hours, and then I had to go to the veterinarian. I had to take my dog, and he's like, "Come on, ask me some more, ask me some more."
Oh, man.
And it's like, he goes, call me back. And then he passed about 2 months later. But we talked a little bit about John Tolos, and I was fortunate enough to interview John Tolos, and I feel that that's pretty rare, because I've heard stories that he wasn't too open, and we had a little connection and Mike, you might remember this, at the Cauliflower Alley the year that there was the big earthquake. John Tolos and Gene Kaninsky and I were outside. They had just taken a walk, and I just followed along with them, just laughing and listening to Tolos rib Kaninsky. and we were turning around, starting to come back to the lodge there, and the earthquake hit. And I remember Tiger Conway Sr. steps out, and he's right underneath a big awning type thing. And Tolos was, aware of earthquakes and where to be and where not to be. And he started yelling at Tiger Conway Sr. to back up, go back in, don't stand underneath that awning. So when I got a hold of Tolos, I reminded him I was the person that was standing next to you when we had that earthquake. He goes, "Oh, I remember, I remember you. I remember that." So again, there was that little bit of connection. And
Was that 1980? Wasn't it like 1989? Because John lived much of his time once he got away from Mike LaBelle's Skinflint Santa Monica hotel where he put the boys up, and he bought his own home with wife Ingrid at the time in Woodland Hills. So they got the big ones that were around the Thousand Oaks, just north of Woodland Hills in the LA Valley.
Yeah, I can't remember for sure. It might have been like 92, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Very quick. Tolis at times, he wasn't the main culprit, but it was usually Gene Kiniski, and if you can believe this, Killer Kowalski, who Sheldon very close to in New England, they would rib not every Saturday or Sunday, but they would call Sam Munchnick and disguise their voices and just mess with him, out of love. And sometimes they would put, Kiniski had the 3 or 4-way line, and they'd add John Tolis to that because those guys were like brothers. Tolis, Kiniski, Kowalski, obviously, with the history they had, all of them dating back to the 50s. It's just something. And I should tell you very quickly for youngins or young to the party, because Sheldon, most everybody here are true historians. I hear that term being thrown around a lot, but Ed Francis was the dad of what, Mike? 3 NFL players, most notably Russ Francis, who was a huge star with the San Francisco 49ers. A couple other teams. He was in WrestleMania 2, that Battle Royal. Pardon?
Yeah. New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Russ with the Patriots. Yeah.
And a credible person. He did for many, many years. I don't know if he still does it. He was doing Northern California or California PR work for WWE when I was shooting, and Lanny Poffo had me in along with Pampero Firpo and his daughter Mary, who just sent me an email. I told her who we're having on the show. She's watching now. She sends her love and best wishes to all of you guys. But Ed Francis, this was not even the main event. I think the main event was Sheik Terry Funk, but underneath, Ray and Nick Stevens and Bockwinkel with their AWA tag straps defending against Bobo Brazil, who brought his makeshift Vince McMahon Sr., whatever championship that was, Sheldon might remember, from the TIWF, teamed with then TIWF champion Pedro Morales, who had his belt. So you have 2 guys with WWF, TIWF, Vince McMahon Sr. titles in the ring, Ray and Nick. I mean, that's like dream match, and it wasn't even the main event of a stellar card. I think the opener was something like Lonnie Main or Maurice Vachon versus Mil Mascaras. So maybe Ed and Tally Ho Blears, could sort of veer away, but I think global attention was on these overall spectacular cards. But the in-house guys, Firpo, King Curtis Iakea, Ripper Roy Collins, Handsome Johnny Barron, who was a total legend, part of Buddy Rogers' clique. The clique before the clique that you guys are familiar, younger people, the 90s or WWE or WWF Vince clique, Hunter, Sean, Nash, Hall, X-Pac. This was the original clique with Billy, Sheldon, correct me, Billy Darnell. There was Johnny Valentine, who Buddy Rogers called Booby.
Clyde Steves.
Chet Wallach.
Yeah.
Who that's another fan club George Amacropolis ran. She didn't just run them for Bruno and Buddy Rogers, but also Chet Wallach. J.J. Dillon was the one who ran Johnny Valentine's fan club. So Sheldon, what has been your creative process like from the first of the 4 books so far? Like, how did you because it's very smart. Anybody that loves wrestling and loves insider wrestling is going to immediately love your book. Whether you're a casual or a smart, you're going to love Sheldon's books. But how did you come to the path of doing something so different as a fictional accounting? But it reads like real wrestling, the terms we all use.
Right. Well, I wanted to do something different. There's a lot of historians out there, people writing historical books, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. Call me a contrarian, if you will, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to actually the real impetus for me writing a fictional book was seeing all these wrestling movies and television shows that got the wrestling right but got the business completely wrong. And I wanted to correct that. I thought, I could write a book that would be interesting, that would take you to corners of the wrestling business that people don't normally see, and make it interesting. So I actually the third book was the book I tried to write the first. And I had put it aside, and then I had the idea for the last fall, and it was just one of those things where I just saw the whole thing, and I wrote the whole book in 3 weeks. So crazy as that sounds. And it was about 8 or 9 weeks between starting it and getting it actually out in print. So it was a very quick process, and as I say, I didn't know how many I was going to sell or if I was going to sell any, and people embraced it. And a mutual friend of ours, Steve DeAngelis, who was a ring announcer for ECW, who's a big casting director in New York, said to me, you really need to write a sequel, because if they ever want to make a movie out of this, you'll make more money if you could get a streaming series out of it. So write a sequel, and so I wrote the sequel, which was After the Bell, and people really responded to that too, and really, really enjoyed it. And I kind of just kept going from there. I put A Mad Dog's Tale, which is the third book, in the same universe as the first two books, and that's what really made it all gel together for me. And then the most recent one is called. The most recent one is called Family Business, which is a lot about second-generation wrestlers. And in each book, I take you to different places in the wrestling business where that people generally don't know about. Like, for example, A Mad Dog's Tale, a good chunk of it takes place in Japan. The Family Business talks a lot about second-generation wrestlers. And the next book, which is called The Warmth of the Sun, a fair amount of it takes place in England, and it talks a lot about British wrestling. So these books kind of give me the chance to explore different parts of the wrestling business for the general public in ways that aren't not telling tales out of school on anyone, but they're realistic depictions. They're business accurate. So and my process was just to sit down, chapter 1, boom, 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 on go. So I didn't sit there with an outline or anything. I just, started to tell the story, and then would go back and polish it up as time went on, and that's how I did it. I know that sounds maybe a little bit like it's too easy, but it was such an enjoyable thing for me. I've gotten this whole experience of being an author has been so enjoyable on a very different level. I mean, I used to produce plays and I promoted wrestling, and those things were great. I loved and enjoyed both of them, but they are different. I mean, I might have been the person behind everything, but the expression of it was through other people, whether it was actors or whether it was wrestlers. With a book, it's different. It's your work, it's your words, and it's you. And it's a very different kind of satisfaction when it works, and I've been very fortunate that all of these have worked.
One of the many stars you work with, right, was Lauren Bacall?
Yes.
You told me that a zillion years ago, and I mean, that's about as impressive as it gets. I just want to say something quickly. When I talk about historians, I'm thinking, and Evan, or any of you guys, can chime right in. I'm thinking of like somebody, Jim Melby, J. Michael Kenyon, Tom Burke, who's like my guru, Lib Ayub, who's like the godfather of Australian history. They go in and do the microfiche and, spend months and months for stuff that, researching stuff they didn't experience firsthand. And that's kind of what, I'm not knocking anybody, but don't call yourself a historian if you're not putting in the grunt work, the heavy duty stuff. Russ, let me throw to you very quickly and then Evan, but Russ, tell us about your brother. We want to send a shout out because he has.
Yeah, no, my brother was in a terrible accident. He broke his ribs and fractured a C7 joint, the C7 disc in his neck. And, not only that, I would also like to publicly say, fuck you to UC Davis. And no, I really.
They have a good veterinary school. It's one of the best in the world.
Yeah, but they can treat dogs, but they can't treat humans. And they really have dropped the ball on my brother and put a huge burden on me. So I'm probably going to have to go back to Sacramento after I left today to take care of him when they should have kept him in the hospital because he's not well. But I hope that he can really recover because the accident he was in was very severe. So he can walk 100 feet. So they said, out the door he goes. He said, but it's not my legs that are hurt. It's my ribs and my neck. And they just said, we don't care. If you're ambulatory, you're on your own. And it just is terrible. It's the state of the American healthcare system. You're often better working on yourself with a rusty fucking pocket knife. Seriously.
Evan, let's let you take over from here.
I agree with Russ. Many years ago, I had a doctor wrongly tell me I had cancer. I had unnecessary surgeries. Surgeries. So now I go to Asian doctors. As you can, I got the Asian gimmick. No, but seriously.
But you're doing Tai Chi. You've gained strength and flexibility doing Asian medicine.
I can levitate and I could blow green mist like the Japanese wrestlers also. So,
Kabuki and Buddha.
Well, you are working with someone that was a personal friend of Bruce Lee's.
Actually, you want to hear a funny story, guys? Our Tai Chi teacher is leader, I shouldn't say teacher. She's an 88-year-old woman. She was friends with Bruce Lee, and she says, quote, he was a rascal. He was always in trouble. I couldn't make this up.
Wow.
Anyway, getting back to wrestling books, I have a question for Sheldon. I remember as a kid, I would fixate on series. Like I read all of Ian Fleming's James Bond. Then I was reading the pulps like Doc Savage. Then I was reading The Destroyer and The Punisher. And I would read like 6, 7, 8 in a row and then before I moved on to something else. Yeah. So what is it about series like Sheldon's doing that attracts people? Because it did to me. I get it. What is it?
Well, it's like a literary. It's like a literary soap opera.
Okay.
I thought the first book would be it. I really did, and it was only because Steve D'Angelo says you better write a sequel, or you're leaving money on the table. And not being one at this stage of my life to want to leave any money on any table, I did that. But I didn't have any expectations. I just said I'm just because I stopped. The first book takes place between 1971 and 1999. So I felt, I've got a place to pick it up from and tell the story further. And so that was, I had a handle on what I was going to do. A Mad Dog's Tale is kind of a spin-off. It's one of the characters that shows up late in the second book, and it's his story alone. And it's a different kind of a wrestling journey. So and thank you, Mike. And so and then I just got back to the story of the first two books with the fourth one, which is The Family Business, and it's all about second generation wrestlers and again taking you into corners of the wrestling business that the general public doesn't necessarily see. And I thought that would be interesting for people.
And let me ask Mike Rodgers. Mike, I'm mentioning your last name because we have two Mikes on the show. I
Sure.
don't want to confuse
Sure.
anybody. So, Mike, why Hawaii? I mean, there's dozens and dozens of territories. What fascinated you about Hawaii?
Every time I just saw the results from like Tom Burke's bulletin or wherever I saw them, it was just really, really fascinating. And also a lot of the wrestlers from Portland would wrestle in Hawaii. So I just found it really, really interesting. Um, the aspect of the wrestlers going and coming to Japan, filling out the cards, just making them so appealing. When I was in college, um, like Mike said, the microfiche, there was only one newspaper in the country or one library, college library, that carried the Hawaii newspaper. And it was a college in Illinois for some reason, not Hawaii, but Illinois. And so I would do interlibrary loans to get the microfiche and look through the mid 60s, to find those results. And they'd only send me like 3 or 4 months at a time. So it took a couple of years of college to get those results. And after I'd written just about everything that I think that I could on Portland, it was like nobody's ever really touched Hawaii. And I had the research and got a lot of help from Steve Ogilvy. It wouldn't have been a book at all without his help. But yeah, lots of fun. I learned so much about the history of Hawaii. Forget about wrestling, especially at the time of Pearl Harbor. Al Karasik really had to be hustling to continue to promote things. He started promoting dances, and they'd have to be in the afternoon because there was a curfew. And he would double book the arena or the wherever they were, the venue. He'd have something that they called a derby. And a derby, as I looked at it, was kind of like vaudeville acts. And so they'd do that. They'd have this entertainment that they called a derby, and then they'd have a dance later in the afternoon. It wouldn't go into the evening because of the curfew, but he would fit as much into a day in a venue that he could. And then when he was able to start promoting wrestling, all the wrestlers were gone, and so he would have to try and train some of the military people who had an interest, and that's how he got back into wrestling in the later 40s.
Mickey Doyle, who's a good friend, he said that when he was wrestling in Hawaii, it wasn't that the payoffs was so great. He said it was like you were living in paradise. It was a beautiful area, and the road trips weren't insane like in some territories, and it was a nice lifestyle, and you didn't get rich from it, but he said it was a great crew of wrestlers and quality wrestling, and it was a nice life there. And you're living off the beach or whatnot, and I get it. But here's my big question. So some of these territories are long gone. I'm talking decades and decades ago. Why? And it's each project no matter who writes it, is going to appeal to a niche audience. It's some of the fans are gone at this point, 30, 40 years after these territories are gone.
Yeah.
So what is your motivation? Why is it important to you to chronicle this?
Well, if you're looking to me to start, Portland is a territory I feel like similar to Memphis. Portland, especially in the 60s and 70s, it was one of the only, the Portland Trailblazers, the basketball team came in about 1972. Before that, there wasn't any other sports entertainment, at least at all. There was a minor league baseball team, but even in Portland, even if you weren't a wrestling fan, those wrestlers became celebrities in the town. Lonnie Mae, Buddy Rose, later on Buddy Rose and Roddy Piper, Dutch Savage. People knew who they were, even if they weren't wrestling fans. And a lot of times they'd be on different types of commercials and just became more and more popular. And yeah, it's interesting because if we can find people old enough to remember Portland wrestling, everybody's got a story. It's like, oh, my uncle drank with Lonnie Mae. Everybody has a story like
But
that.
everybody came in there, Mike. A young Kurt Hennig came in there. Rick Martel. You talk about Bull Ramus. He set the record, at least in L.A., for dropping his hair in Hair versus Mask to Mio Moskowitz 3 times. Black Gorman came close at second, or twice dropping his hair to Moskowitz. Bull Ramus was a mega heel in L.A., held the America's Championship very briefly, had a feud with Freddie Blassie after Blassie turned babyface after the 3 cage matches with the Sheik, followed up with the scientific match to cement the fact he was the area's top face with Rocky Johnson, 45-minute, I don't know if that was work time, but they claimed 45-minute Broadway, Blassie, Rocky Johnson, 1970. And these are all guys, everybody came in and out of Portland, which was amazing. And Bull Ramus also worked in Hawaii amongst so many guys. And that was the very first place, and I'll shut up, that Baba and Andre the Giant ever met. It was some battle royal that Ed Francis had, and they'd not met. And obviously Andre, when Vince Sr. threw his cast with New Japan and Inoki, once Inoki started it, LA followed suit, and we no longer, had the NWA champion coming in all that much. It was mostly like Superstar Graham came in and defended against Chavo and things like that, or Piper taking on Backlund for that. I think it was the only time Piper and Backlund ever met for the Tri-WF title or any other match. But there is so much history that's relevant, and if you're studying like the biggest names in the industry ever, Giant Shohei Baba, Andre the Giant, I mean, boom, just look at Hawaii. So history in both those places. Obviously Portland, amazing. Stan Stasiak, that was the guy.
Speaking of history, I wanted to bring up the WWE and having the retirement match for John Cena this weekend. And of course, them touting to everyone that John Cena belongs on the Mount Rushmore of the 4 greatest wrestlers in the history of the WWE.
Well, for them in terms of gross. Evan, you could talk more to that because you wrote an outstanding review of last night's Saturday night's main event.
Bring that up.
I think with WWE, it's very fluid. They cited Cena as the greatest of all time. And a few years ago, they cited Roman Reigns as the greatest of all time. And on their top 50, wrestlers of all time, they said Shawn Michaels was the greatest.
But
where is Bruno? Bruno is the GOAT in my mind, because he got that company going.
Bruno didn't break the top 10.
Are you effing kidding me?
Not on their DVDs. So
Bruno is Capital Wrestling, Tri-WF, WWF, and WWE. That's Bruno.
But my point is, it becomes almost a gimmick because WWE themselves keeps changing who the greatest of all time.
It is a gimmick.
Yeah,
it is a gimmick. All it is.
Yeah,
it's not.
Exactly.
It has no basis in fact. That's why, thank God for people like Mike Rodgers and all the rest of the great historians, because that would vanish into the mists of time without them. Just because I write fiction, that was a personal choice. It doesn't mean that I think that wrestling history is unimportant. Quite the opposite. I think it's vitally important. This is a business that could very well vanish in the minds of everyone if people don't take the time and effort to preserve it, and God bless those people, in my opinion.
Well, now, Sheldon, you're quite the historian too. Sheldon knows his history.
Here's my big question. Okay. What is the line between historian, wrestling journalist, and writer? To me, somebody doing an obsessive over analyzing of a meaningless Raw or SmackDown doesn't constitute, it's not Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, or William
Right,
Faulkner.
right.
So what is the line that makes somebody all of the above, a great writer, a great historian, and a great journalist? Do we even have that?
Well, I'm not trying to feather my own nest here, but I couldn't books that I've written if I didn't have a command of history. Because I wanted these books to be real. I wanted them not real in terms of that they depict events that actually happened, but real in the sense that they're accurate to the business, that they present a picture of pro wrestling that is parallel to how it actually was. And you can, like the last fall, much of the action takes place in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where the main character grows up, and the monthly matches are promoted at a place called the Zembo Mosque, which is a real place. And I talk about how the matches were promoted, what they did to promote them, and so forth, and the places where they sold tickets, which are real places. So there's I do a pretty fine dance between fact and fiction, and give you a picture of how it was at the time through the eyes of a wrestler.
Shell, would you say that, just very briefly, you were a creative genius booking your own promotion? Now, do you satisfy that sort of itch or that creativity spark in writing? I think that translated into you being an author.
I'm laughing because one of my very guys that I was close to who wrestled for me quite a bit, he says, you finally figured it out. You finally figured out how to be a booker without the wrestlers, the ring, or booking the venue.
Nobody can stiff Sheldon currently.
I laughed when he told me that. And it's true. In a very real sense, it's true.
Another person that you became famous because of you, is it Mercedes Martinez?
Mercedes Martinez, yes.
New England Championship Wrestling. I mean, you gave her one of her first starts where there was global attention put on her when she worked for you.
Yep. Frugal Devin, Finn Balor too. I got Finn Balor into New Japan.
Whoa.
So, speaking of Martinez, Evan, do you want to also give a tribute to your wrestling friend fan, Eric Martinez?
A very well-liked East Coast wrestling fan who, was very, very supportive of the Indies. Eric Martinez passed this week, and it was just very moving because so many of the wrestlers themselves acknowledged him. And this is another reason why I tell people, support indies, support indie everything, support indie publishing like we're talking about tonight, support indie film. There's a film right now, Brownsville Bred. It was done on $500,000, and you'll cry your eyes out. Beautiful film, true story. Mm-hmm. And friend of mine, Edwin Vasquez, did the music for it, and it's poignant. And these franchises, you could spend $100 million, $200 million, and you could wipe your ass with some of it. It's it's a waste of 2 hours or 3 hours of your life. So support indie everything. And this kid, I say kid, because I'm old. He was in his 30s, a young guy. Sadly he passed this week, and it's nice that everybody acknowledged him. And I find it very touching when fans and historians and wrestling writers and such are acknowledged. Like anytime Georgia Macropolis is mentioned, you get this flood of love from people, and she's been gone over a decade.
Well, there was nobody that connected every aspect from Vince Jr. on down. She had everybody on speed dial: Shawn Michaels, Nash, Hall. Obviously the older Total legends, Johnny Valentine, Rodgers. So I didn't want to close what Evan brought up because Georgie was a keeper of results and a historian in that way. And Mike Rodgers and I have known Meltzer perhaps longer than almost anybody. I've known Meltzer since 71. I couldn't even drive yet, so my parents take me to the airport. I'd fly up to San Jose Airport. Dave and his mom would pick me up, and we go to the Cow Palace, the Battle Royals, which I had to shoot. Um, I couldn't even drive yet, but Dave went to school, Mike Rodgers knows, in Fort Worth, so he was able to, go to Von Erich shows, Fritz's shows. I forget, like 2 years. He got his journalism degree at some major journalism school in Fort Worth. John Arisi went to Boston College. I think Wade Keller. Mike, but you're in the thick of things because Brian Alvarez is there. Did Brian Alvarez go to journalism school? So we're looking at people that were journalists and who've culled history. But Mike, what do you know about Alvarez, who's right in your region there?
Yeah, I think Brian, the only job I really know that Brian had prior to writing about wrestling, he was a gymnastics coach.
Really?
Yeah, if he did go to college for journalism, I'm not aware of it.
Maybe you can ask because he started Figure Four Weekly in '89, the same year Wade Keller started Pro Wrestling Torch. And we all thought at that time, I mean, I had conversation with both Evan and Sheldon. I thought, oh, gee, if something happened to Meltzer, he retires, it's going to be Wade Keller taking over. But who was it? It's Brian Alvarez, who's now Dave's partner. Who would you have ever thought, Mike Rodgers, that Dave Meltzer would have like a partner at his empire?
No, and Brian, his bulletin when it started off, so much was tongue in cheek. Brian's got a great sense of humor, and he didn't take himself very seriously. Is my impression of his bulletin. It was fun to read and everything, and informative. But yeah, that was my first impression. Is he just didn't take himself real seriously.
In contrast to your newsletter, which I really loved. Yeah, I love tongue in cheek and fun, but yours, you got right into the history, every issue, and I love that.
Yep.
And Sheldon the same way. Matt Marketplace, it was a whole myriad of things, but there was a ton of history in every issue too from Sheldon.
And before we run out of time, let me just acknowledge the people that we have on tonight, because Sheldon devoted himself to promoting for the longest time and didn't get rich from it. And Mike Rodgers did newsletters forever and now book after book after book and didn't get rich from it. These are the unsung heroes of the wrestling industry who devoted their lives to this.
Well, we're singing about them now.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. There's a lot of mediocrities that have made a lot of money in this business, from the clickbait boys on down. And, Mike Rodgers is unsung, and I mean, it's acknowledge these people while they're here. We're not getting any younger, any of us. And I think it's important. And, indie promotions, what people do not grasp and what you will understand if you read Sheldon's books, it's like a surrogate family. There's a lot of wrestlers out there, the boys are their family because their family failed them in certain. I'm not making a blanket statement, of course, but there's people, wrestling has saved them, and promoters like Sheldon, the honest ones, the quality ones, should be acknowledged. And it's it's an interesting business, and it goes far beyond WWE and AEW. Let
me tie things together very quickly. Vicious Victoria, or Vicious Vicky, I think's her name. She went online social media saying Cena, with his shtick of never give up, helped her overcome drugs and addictions and stuff to opioids.
That's great.
And so he invited her, brought her to the retirement show last night. And, it just, I think in the 70s and 60s, all of you guys, maybe not Russ, he's a little bit younger, but we all like support each other. There was never any bickering. Everybody just loved wrestling. The territories were so much fun and unique. Brilliant, as Mike Rodgers has been writing, and Sheldon well knows, Evan well knows. And you talk about indies. I'm covering Rick Bassman's UPW in Southern California, right? It's like a mile from where I now live. It was in Irvine, and I see a guy with a white, sort of a faux hawk prototype, and that's John Cena. It's the first place he ever worked in UPW. He was a bodyguard for Rick Bassman, the MMA and wrestling promoter, and he got his chops there well before I think it was Jim Ross or one of the agents sent him to OVW. And here's the guy's retiring last night, but he started in an indie, and it was so much fun. Frankie Kazarian, I'm nagging him to do a book. You guys tell me if you think it might be fun. He and Tracy, like writing a book from a couple, husband and wife, on how they survived wrestling and a marriage and kids. I think that would be kind of a fun. Do you guys think that might be fun? Frankie's now world champion for TNA.
Sure, absolutely. Do you know that John Cena wrestled Frankie Kazarian in my company?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Well, that's
Holy
when I got
shit.
introduced, but that was when he was the prototype.
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Yes. That's when I got to know him, because he did an invasion up on APW, the UWF.
That's the Northern California, Roland Alexander.
He was moving from California to Louisville, and he came home to the Boston area to get stuff to take with him. And he asked if he could have a match on one of my shows, because his family had never seen him wrestle.
Wow.
And I booked him, and I told him, I said, who would you like to put me with? And I said, well, you're coming out with Frankie Kazarian. I says, you know each other, you teamed up. Why would you just work each other? That would just be the easiest thing, and you'd be comfortable and so forth. So he sends me this email. He says, I understand I'm booked against the future Frankie Kazarian. I promise you it's going to be a good match. I promise you it's going to be great, and I thank you for booking me and all that. I never forgot that email, because it was such a classy thing for that kid to do.
Yeah.
He is a class guy.
Yeah.
Frankie Kazarian, another class guy who Walter trained. Walter Kowalski, the trainer of champions. Greatest. I put him and the Incredible Sheik, the fireball throwing Sheik, my favorite villains of all time, just because the aura. I don't care what's happening today. I watch all of it. I don't see the aura that I saw with a Dick the Bruiser, Kowalski, Giant Baba, who could barely wrestle. He needed Bruno and others to carry him, Briscoe, the Funks. But he had that aura. Inoki, Mascaras even, before he stopped selling for people. Those guys had aura, and I just don't see it as often. I do with Okada, some of these guys, but let's let everybody plug their things. Sheldon and Mike Rodgers, whoever wants to go first, let's plug everything. Where can we get these incredible books?
I have 3 copies or 3 volumes of Excitement in the Air, and these are interviews that have taken place from my bulletin that I put out for 30 years. So they're taken directly from the bulletin, Ring Around the Northwest. My next book is Katie Bar the Door, and this is the history of Portland wrestling. And we have Lonnie Main, Tony Bourne, Buddy Rose, and Roddy Piper on the cover. Really, we go all the way back to the beginning, but it really goes into detail from 1960 on. There is an encyclopedia of every Portland wrestler that appeared in the Portland Sports Arena.
Wow.
And we found 2 though. We found 2 that didn't make it: Woody Farmer and Joyce Williams. So it's always fun to acknowledge what you missed.
Volume 2.
But little thumbnail sketches of every single person that appeared. Some that were rumored to appear. Ivan Putski was supposed to come here and never made it. Made another decision to go to another territory, but he was billed here for 2 or 3 weeks. He even gets a little write-up. Several of the guys, El Bracero from WWA was supposed to come here at one point.
And the Sheik's territory, El Bracero was in Detroit forever. I got to say this, Woody Farmer, his son Rex, and his grandson, they were, to my knowledge, it hasn't even happened in Japan or Mexico. And I called them three generations. I did a pro wrestling, a PWI magazine piece on them. Grandfather, son, and grandson, all as a six-man. They're the only guys on the planet who've ever done that.
Wow. Wow.
And Woody Farmer was the very first championship tag partner with
Wow.
Shawn Michaels for Bob Geigel in Kansas City before Shawn went to Houston and way before being paired with
Now,
Marty
I will
Jannetty.
say this, Dr. Mike, I will say this in quotes, that, yes, Woody Farmer was in there and Shane was in there. His son Riot is a terrible wrestler. And so even though it
But
was
that's still
three
that's still
generations,
history.
it was three
John Cena, the
generations in
five
there.
moves of doom. He didn't have a lot of moves, but the mofo was over like $1 million. He made more money for the company. That's probably why they're calling him the GOAT. At least at this point, he's the GOAT. Right now there'll be another GOAT maybe next year. But Shell,
I wanted to
where
ask
should everybody
Sheldon,
contact you to get these books? And
but I did want to ask Sheldon and Mike one thing before they leave, because that top 50 thing is still on my mind, and I don't want you to name your top 50. We don't have time for that because we've gone over so many other things.
Name your top 40, Sheldon.
No, I don't even
Joke.
want a top wrestler by you guys. What I want to know from both of you guys is, what do you feel is the criteria that makes up the greatest wrestlers of all time? Because that, to me, is a bigger question than just naming names.
that's
off a
another
list.
show. That's a whole nother show. Moving people. Bruno Sammartino made people cry if he was
Okay.
on defense. Freddie Blassie when he was
Mike-
a babyface.
Mike, you want to take that first?
We
I
lost you
can't-
for a sec.
We lost Sheldon's audio a little bit.
Let me add this while Sheldon's coming back.
I think so. Mike Rodgers, go ahead and answer.
You're breaking up, Sheldon. You have to care.
I'm sorry?
You have to care about the wrestler. When Bruno would get punched and kicked, we felt it. We felt it. That was the bully in the schoolyard picking on us. And Bruno would come back and conquer. And, in my heart, it's always Bruno or Terry Funk, guys like this who you loved. Okay? And it goes beyond this one has better moves or this one is a better technician or whatnot.
Mike, what is your thought, Mike?
Yeah, you have to connect to the crowd. They're just like Evan said. You can have great moves and everything, but if you don't connect to the crowd and have that aura and that personality that helps make you the total package, where people really want to come and see you, I think that's one of the most important things.
We're looking
And
at Stan
also-
Stasiak, Dutch Savage, a multitude of guys, Buddy Rose, Piper, when they turned face. People connected with them instantly. They always wanted to cheer them, but when they were
But
heels.
even heel Piper in WWF in the mid 80s, it was so exciting that
Yeah.
when the match ended, you could breathe again. That's what it was like sitting in Madison Square Garden when heel Piper headlined. While we're waiting for Sheldon to come back, let me just quickly plug my book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. And I'm coming at a whole different place. These were my friends, a lot of them. I was at Nicole Bass's deathbed. Lanny Poffo slept on my couch. Johnny Valiant slept on my couch. You see a lot of them in the cover back there. And Nikolai was a dear friend, Kowalski, and it's them as human beings. It's a whole. I'm coming at it from a whole different place. 100 stories and tons of Mike Lano and Dave Brzezinski photos. Check it out, folks. And
Who's
again,
this guy right here, Evan?
that's Mickey Rourke when we did the wrestling.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's Nick Cage here.
Yeah, we met with Nick Cage because we couldn't raise the money with Mickey for the wrestler that we wanted. We wanted to get 18 mil, and we could only raise $6 million because Mickey's star had waned. So one night I'm sent to meet, Nicolas Cage, and I tell that story in the book. I brought him backstage to Ring of Honor. It was wild. A super nice guy, super down to earth guy. Yeah. Anyway, Sheldon, we lost you for a while. Plug your books.
All right, so I've got 4 books. First one is called The Last Fall. It's the story of the fictional wrestler Rick Pacheco, and that is followed by After the Bell, which continues Rick's story. And after that one is called A Mad Dog's Tale, the story of the fictional wrestler Mad Dog Mike Morrison, a nice Jewish boy from Marblehead, Massachusetts, who has a very unique and interesting wrestling journey. And last but not least is The Family Business, which is also a continuation in this series, all about second-generation wrestlers and coping with the corporatization of professional wrestling. It's basically one guy's perspective of 50 years of pro wrestling.
Sheldon, have you ever even in your mind thought maybe making it into a movie or a TV series?
It's episodic.
I would love to. I've been sending it to producers and trying to get an agent. So I am working on that.
If any of them
I think they would make a great. What's that?
If any of them are tuning into the podcast, get a hold of Sheldon right away. So hopefully we can make you that
And Mike
connection.
Rodgers, not just the interviews, but Ring Around the Northwest. If you put like a year, you could sell a year, like 1985 of Ring Around the Northwest. And somebody like you needs to do a documentary on Papa Don Owen and Roddy Piper. That was surrogate father that Roddy never had. And, Kitty, his widow, Roddy's widow, talks about that when I email her. I think that would be a fantastic, some kind of project, either a book or a documentary.
There's not enough on Piper's life.
And the relationship between Lonnie Main and Piper. They were main eventing in 2 territories at one time on top, unrelated territories. San Francisco Shire, LaBelle, Los Angeles. Nobody on the planet had ever done that before. No. For many, like a year and a half. It's amazing. And that's how Lonnie died. He was leaving L.A. to go make Shire's TV, drive up the 5 freeway and got hit by a drunken driver. And, what a brilliant. Oh, man, Lonnie Main was absolutely incredible, but I'll shut up. That's for another show. We got to have you back and talk about these guys.
Yeah, we're
and
out
Lonnie
of time.
Main eventing against Morales for the Tri-WF title and WWE.
We're out of time for tonight, Mike. So thank you so much, gentlemen. We love having you on, Sheldon. We'd like to have you on again soon. Hopefully your health and everything cooperates so we can have you on next year. And Mike, absolutely great to have you on.
Say a prayer for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do a lot of Portland-based shows, so we could probably use you for one of those.
Sure.
Let me just end with good luck to Sheldon with your procedures coming up, and good luck and get well soon to Owen Jackman, who's watched almost 300 hours of this show. Good man. And Owen's going through a lot also. So
let's wish everybody great health in 2026.
Yep. Right, and a wonderful holiday season to everyone. And we'll have you on again next year. Really looking forward to that. Good night, everyone.
Likewise.
Good night, everybody.
And